art auctions. Contemporary art. There is particularly unique insight coming from a lot of contemporary art, or so the label seems to include today's works of art, with certain vagueness stemming from the lack of a dominant school of thought or ideology. Most date contemporary art beginning towards the late 1960s. Most artwork could be defined easily by particular details prior to this, and there were trends of these preferences even through to the 1980s. After the modernistic period of art was confirmed, much of the direction came to be rather disparate during periods of socio-political change, and many of the distinctions within art have been loosened dramatically. It is truly a wonderful thing when you consider how much we gain from our appreciation of art, what volumes it speaks about our own culture, and among cultures that make up the world besides our own. It is highly fashionable to understand something of what art is, how it tries to reinterpret our own scope of the world on an artistic level, and yet reveals so much of the human nature behind its creation. Today's artistic minds are no different than the outgrowth of ideas on a canvas surface, and some are possessed with similar qualities that those artworks considered classics have in the past.
With some critical opinions decrying the current of contemporary art to be devoid of true beauty, critic Donald Cosbit was known to say that art had left the studio and found its way into the street, and it may not be that much for the worse with the blurring of many lines presently. Today, contemporary art seems to reflect those issues being faced by the world, and the emphasis on politics seems to have intensified of late. The shift drawing away from an ideal of beauty and purity to a completed posing force of inspiration from socially oriented art, and often crosses the bounds of proper medium. Though that is where the argument stops and conjecture begins, as critics and artists alike clash in opinion over where the line is, particularly between the various categories of thought, and it has been pieces of every different art movement being re-evaluated in a similar way, in order to find that place that crosses over between art, artist, and audience, and creates a means for all of them to share space in the comprehensive concept to the artwork, making the gaps and the points between art and life smaller and smaller, and creating new ways in which to comprehend the ways of the things we view around us.
Engaging mass culture with affecting the boundaries of perception through the means of the relevant issues shaping the world as we know it. And today there are many schools and studios of contemporary art that try to help shape the practice of contemporary art that will translate to the future, allowing us introspective glimpses into the artist's thoughts, creating interconnectedness that defies and defines what laws and life may continue to restrict, to analyze, and further define itself as multiple entities within one completely distinct from the sum of its parts.
When considering all of this information, it may seem overwhelming at first, but art is not impossible to understand if you concentrate on understanding what your tastes happen to be. When not thinking about these things, it is easy to overlook the value of what you are purchasing, and you may not be able to get the most for what you wish to spend. There are few lessons to learn that do not involve somewhat self-explanatory terms, but one must approach what appeals them with a frugal yet open state of mind. It can be much easier to find a good bargain with this mental state at hand.
Timing can sometimes be necessary to make the deal more lucrative for the buyer, and with some art auctions, it may be difficult to find some grounds on which to begin bidding. However, with studious attention to what you wish your end goal to be, and you will have found a way to acquire at least some kind of facsimile to show for your efforts. Depending upon how deeply you would wish to involve yourself in activities such as local viewings of artwork from contemporary artists, and perhaps you would even find a way to see the stirrings of the creativity from within, by becoming friends with local artists and networking.